Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you so very much for joining me today as we continue our weekly discussions based on the book, The Integral Human Being. And as we continue here, and I always like to bring this visual of what is the book, what we're doing. But briefly, this is based on a book, the second book of the psychology collection. Sorry, psychological or psychology series, psychology collection, which is a 16 book series written by spiritual author Joanna de Angelis in close collaboration with Divaldo Pereira Franco. Joanna de Angelis created this bridge between spiritism and depth psychology and transpersonal psychology, which is super important for us that are studying it for the first time. We'll be discussing via the book, right, the various topics of the book, issues, and even therapies that the book offers page by page for us. And quite frankly, if we consider how vulnerable we all are, this moment in humanity as a whole is undergoing so much pain, so much suffering. And to me, this book is a gift that brings us, solutions to psychological issues that we all are vulnerable to as it discusses root causes. Our focus is to bring up a weekly topic found in the book. And the ultimate goal is for you and for me to ask ourselves, how do I ensure I achieve a sense of balance, stability, emotional maturity? And that's what we're going to be talking today, despite of what's going on around me. As you can see here, the book uh, is based on 40, the book study, sorry, based on the book that contains 40 chapters that is divided in those 9 parts. And today's topic is the recovery of identity, which is smack in the middle of the book. And this book, just so you have a sense of, contains topics that range from, oh, routine. What could be wrong with our routine? Loneliness. What could be wrong with our sense of loneliness? All the way to, say, social phobia, and even as abstract for us as a discussion on myth. But as wide and as the topics range, and this is important for you and me, they form this sort of crescendo where we add a new layer to the overall theme, which is here is the integral human being, right? What does it mean to be whole, to have a sense of fulfillment, but also to integrate the very aspects of who we are? And with this, I would say this is our invitation to explore together the themes Joanna de Angelis brings to us front and center from 2 lenses, spiritism and depth psychology. Let's just go ahead and start our discussion proper. And yes, I know, I started with pretense. Well, the fact is, Joanna de Angelis starts the chapter with this statement that is written on the screen. I don't know if you can read it, so I'll read it out loud for you, which is a statement about our own psychological immaturity, lack of maturity. So she says the psychological immaturity leads human beings, you and I, to annul their own identity as a result of their fearing the aggressive characteristics of the struggles in the world and in life. Whew, it's a lot to unpack, right, in just one paragraph. But if you think about it, in society, our society, and I can only say mostly Western society, right? Developed world in the Western part of this world, this society largely promotes what? Well, extroversion and display of eternal bliss, eternal happiness, but also uh, this sense of follower and leaders, right? There's this herd mentality that occurs in a society that has so many of us living in, especially in the urban settings. But unless we have reached a level of maturity, we often find ourselves in a place that is, at a minimum, challenging. Excuse me. For the introverted in all of us, think about it, right? We are so often sidelined and with everything that goes around, that everybody's in the spotlight, and when we prefer not to be in the spotlight, we are sidelined and often have to deal with several issues, including inferiority complexes. Yes, it hits us all. So we can either distance ourselves from this larger social group that we're part of, or another way to handle this is just to be compelled to submit in this sense of I need to belong, I need to be part of, therefore I will submit, I will not impose my own sense of self. The topic at play here is that either avoidance or submission leads to a sense of inauthenticity. I can't speak, right? Inauthenticity. Why are we saying that? Well, on one hand, we are biosocial animals, so we have this urge to belong. And on the other hand, in order to belong, by destroying, if you will, by diminishing, by diluting who we are not being authentic, right? And we do this when we allow others to impose who they are on us by just I'm so afraid, I don't feel well, but I'm going to disguise it, and those are my double masks, right? The personas that Carl Gustav Jung talks so well. Let's just disguise who we are so nobody can, our fears, right? So nobody can see us. We hide behind those masks. We take on new masks, new personas, and we copy what it is to us, a seemingly a mask of successful role model. All of it is, again, it's inauthentic. We're trying to be what we're not, and we start to follow, right, that the whole idea of herd mentality. But we also take on personas, masks, right? We copy gestures, we copy mannerisms, we even copy clothing ideologies, and in doing that, we assume behaviors that are external to us, but we start to copy it so much that they feel like they belong, they are who we are, and boom, until a moment that no longer in vogue, no longer fashionable, no, you are passe, you are obsolete, so the cycle starts all over again. And I'd say it is sad, isn't it? I have to say, we begin this cycle and end up actually. more conflicted with ourselves than we begin with, because we start living life at a very, very superficial level. And we do this because we must adapt, right? So it goes into full cycle until a new cycle begins. And by doing this, by being inauthentic, by being very superficial, we also become this adaptable to the next wave of acceptable behaviors, and we just have to keep looking. So while we don't look internally to who we are, how we feel, we look at how everybody's behaving, not necessarily how they are, how they feel, until that is no longer acceptable. And boom, we start this learning process, learning. I would say air quotes here, trying to learn, right? And it's a process that whew, it just takes all of who we are. It suffocates us, and it leaves us in a state of really not feeling well. And worst of all, we don't feel well. We just don't have enough air, if you will, metaphorically speaking. But we start to live this life of deception that it is dangerous, right? Because it bleeds through other areas, right? We are not able to be open because I am not who I am. Therefore, I cannot be open. I cannot be transparent. I cannot be authentic. I have to fall always protecting of those masks or double masks that that protects us, that we fall behind. And it is a life that is actually very artificial. We become even more vulnerable to that because we live a challenging as it is life, right? Stormy waters, but that challenging life does not have a true north. We don't have our true identity. And difficult as it may be, but it's very true, we don't have a true friends, true partners. Psychologically speaking, Joanna is talking about a sense of mutilation of who we are, our commitments, right? We mutilate, we fragment, we destroy who we are, our commitments, but also those that are closest to us, can be our friends or partners or family members. And this is a process that we end up becoming truly faceless, truly fragmented, and we just have to keep on focusing on maintaining the pretense of what we are not. Oh, this is terrible, but I hope it makes sense to you. I'll just continue this discussion because Joanna, and I wrote down, but again, you may not be able to read here in this next slide. She writes down, each human being is the sum of their own experience. That's beautiful, right? And what she means by that is I am, you are, we all are a result of our cultural experiences, our social experience, as well as intellectual, moral, and religious background. What is it that it's part of this social environment that we are part of? So I wanted to say that an archetype in my mind is a symbol that archetype, the word archetype, right? A type that is archetypical. Oh, not a good one. Very circular definition, Mercy. But in my mind, archetype is a symbol that has become ossified, right? Solidified. And they're just a very strong symbol that is in the minds of people, no matter their background might be. Um, I keep thinking a big archetype of evil that has become, right, a 20th century uh, archetypical evil is Hitler, for example. Someone that led an entire country, an entire generation to terrific things. But generally speaking, the archetype is defined as the original model, right? From which something is developed or made of. So if you think about archetypes in literary criticism, for example, those are the images that writers, and I'm talking from times immemorial, from Greek tragedies to the book or the movie just published, right? Those images, those figures, those character types, those settings, even the story patterns that exist that Carl Gustav Jung, our amazing Swiss analytical psychology, that permeates in the work of Joanna de Angelis, but also permeates the entire discussion on depth psychology. But he speaks about it. Those are universally shared by people everywhere. So, from a company like Disney, for example, when they come with an animated figure, there are some archetypical figures that they pick up, and it's easily understood from a child, a young child, all the way to the older adult. So, archetypes, according to Mr. Jung, they are embedded deep in all humanity's collective unconscious, and they contain and they involve somehow memories of situations, events, and relations that have been part of our entire human experience from its own beginning. Ooh, I love it. I love it. It's why did I bring archetype up? Because Joanna brings in this chapter, and she says our archetypes are characterized by our own sense of sociability, and because it is based on this, the collective unconscious, but it's also my own sense of sociability, it is identical to no other. So I'm like, okay, Joanna, can we please break it down further so that we all understand our identity? She brings to us, right? This is the topic of this chapter, identity. Our identity is our real individuality, which is true, right? It is the true designer, the true architect of our lives, our identity. So this identity, this individuality, is the sole driver as well as the sole beneficiary of everything we do, everything we accomplish, and so it drives our actions, it drives our response, and it drives our sense of this is your accomplishment. The merit is yours. Nobody can take that away because it's all based on our individuality. Yet, there's always a counterpoint in Miss Joanna de Angelis topics, right? Yet, we all belong, so it goes back to Jung's notion of archetype. Yet we all belong to a social group. And the social group is usually formed by a sense, a commonality, right? A common sense of affinity, I don't know, interest, aspirations, shared experience, right? Shared and exchange type of touch points that resonate with each other. So this is who we belong. And we may be distance, like myself, for example. I was born in Brazil, but I have lived two-thirds of my life away from Brazil, yet there is a deep affinity, a deep interest, a deep set of exchange that relates with my Brazilianness, with my roots, my cultural, my family cultural nest, if you will. But if we think about it, a group, whatever that may be, Brazilians or the family of Mercia, whatever, it does not have to be that nationality. It can be a sense of philosophy or religion or sports, whatever it is, that sense of group emerges from what is a multifaceted kaleidoscope of different individualities. Ah, now we're talking. She is, Joanna, combining the individual and the collective, the social group. And the group actually reflects, like that kaleidoscope, different facets of all the individuals that are part of that group. And so, of course, it's good to see that uniqueness of each group because it reflects a uniqueness of the individualities, but also tend to also demonstrate the disparity of personality types. For example, if I am an extrovert, I started with extrovert introverts, but if I am an extrovert and I am exuberant and I like to take the lead. I'm the first one to lead on an activity, an idea, etc., etc. That sense of leadership and role of a leader may be ingrained in me and the group. But as a group, right, it also contains its own set of behaviors. And it, I don't know how to say this, but if we start to think about the group, how it behaves, and that group behavior is the result of group behaviors of the individuals within the groups, but the group behavior overall, it's kind of this average, right? The equivalent types of behaviors. So even though each component, each individual member of that group is different, but on average, because they came together with a sense of affinity, of resonance, of the same shared experience that glue them together, they are they behave very similar as a group as they would do as individuals. So just as an example, my work, right? My company that I work with is a very large organization, and I currently, and this is very, very recent, um, the organization, the group, the social group that I have belonged for the past 5 years has recently been absorbed by a different, larger group. Our own leader moved on, and several people moved out. So it's morphing, it's becoming, and it's quite interesting to observe that with this topic in mind. How how are the personalities from the group before that was, say, let's pretend a number. It's not, but let's pretend it was 50 people, and now we're part of a group of 85 or 100. Let's pretend 100. It's again, it's not 50-50, but we're part of a group. But how do the original 50 behave? And we start to see different types of behaviors. And it's just very interesting. I love to see that, right? And it is a perfectly normal type of behavior because there's a new, if you will, new norm that is happening, and we start to see even different types of not just behavior, by but personality types within a group. But if I think about this as an example, I've been with the same company for 15 years, and just about every so many years, 3 to 5 years, I move to a different new organization. And it's funny that transition point is one that leads us to it's not me, right? It doesn't feel comfortable, but I have to relearn about myself, and I have to relearn this group norms. If we think, right, work related topic, but let's talk about life itself. If we think about life, not unlike a professional organization, we have very similar experience, right? And if we think from the spiritual lens now, as immortal spirits, we have many incarnations. Like think about many different organizations that you start to belong to. So as a result of the reincarnation process, some of us will begin, just to, let's start in the same metaphor, but we will start to begin a new physical existence under a different group that perhaps it's fraught with conflicts, and those conflicts are there, and we must learn, and we must understand how to behave, how to confront, and potentially how to not avoid the goal, the objectives of this new life or this new organization. I hope it makes sense to you. It's quite fascinating to me, by the way. But while I am independent as an immortal spirit, right, of my new reality, let's think about it. We're all in this together, despite of our differences, despite our goals. There some of us who are better at this and that. Some of us are worse than this and that. There are some of us that are extremely gifted in this or that. There are some of us that are not. There are some of us that have I don't know, a life that is fulfilled with titles and values and this and so much that propels them to be heard, to be considered as leaders. Some of us do not. But what we cannot forget is that we all, you and I, all of us, have access to the right tools to fulfill the goals of our lives, right? In a professional setting, is we have the tools, the skill set to do whatever we're hired to do. In our lives, it's just the goals to do, the tools and the skill set, the talents, if you will, to fulfill our goals in life, which is simply put, generically put, to grow, to achieve, to educate, to become better. My emotional duty now, and I pause because this is quite important for all of us to think through this concept. My, yours as well, emotional duty is to embrace my own identity. My duty is to know myself and to let myself be known. I must, it is imperative, I must stop hiding my fears, my limitations, what I have not yet achieved. And it is so critical. It's truly an imperative that we need to make ourselves accepted, be who we are, right? Accepted in this new organization, in this new life. We must commit to health. We must commit to well being that will lead to the emotional maturity that we all need. Let's bring this baby to a closure now because it's quite important for us to talk a little bit about this concept of acceptance. So Joanna gives this beautiful, beautiful, quite poetic, right? Sense that to be adventurous in the constructive, in meaningful sense of the word, is to stimulate values, to review inner contents and propose an experience. So in my mind, it is sailing, right? To be adventurous, to sail into the sunset. But the question is, yes, we've been talking about I must commit to health, I must commit to embrace who I am and my own identity. But are we adventurous? I ask that because our current state as a humanity, as a race, says we're not, right? Our current state says we're not, at least we're not there yet. In fact, there is an estimated 4% of the global population. And if you're talking about in terms of the US, because I live in the US, 19% of the entire US adult population currently experiencing anxiety disorders. And this is, when we put in those numbers, it makes the most common of all mental disorders. And that sense of anxiety and uncertainty that are originated right from the goal to be who I am, to reveal this inner content. Ah, this is really, really difficult. Joanna says, this need to reveal who I am, to accept and be accepted, is part of our own individual projects toward a future that belongs to all of us. This future that she often calls the infinite happiness. I love it. This future that contains psychological stability, that contains this repository, this storage of informational content that we keep receiving in the society that we're part of, but also it is a future that we are all collaborating to what is truly a sense of stability, a sense of success, and a sense of being happy. Uh, but, you know, counterpoint Miss Joanna brings to us is that it does not mean that we will not have, preoccupations, worries. We will not fail. Success, happiness, stability, psychological maturity does not prevent us to have a life that has to deal with potential failures and planning and worrying and de-risking life. Um, they are here, those difficult, challenging moments in our lives, they're here because they must provide a sense of perspective, right? We need to learn to fight, we need to learn to survive, to be alive, and in the process, to have a definition of our own identity. And it goes back to what is my emotional duty. It is truly our greatest duty to be able not only to accept who I am, but to confront who I am, to uncover this identity that we try to bury, we try to unveil, we keep looking for masks to hide behind. And it's so interesting. Excuse me again. I'm losing my voice. It's important to think that the opposite of avoidance, psychological acceptance, is exactly that, is the process of embracing our thoughts, our emotions, and other internal experiences, right? All of our emotional, very rich texture of emotions and feelings without judgment and even without trying to change them. So, if we understand the psychological acceptance well, it just means that we really need to understand that you know experiences come to our lives for a reason, good, bad, and the ugly. It does not matter. So acceptance, just to close this conversation, is a critical part of us achieving a sense of inner maturity, right? The process includes creating a space, providing a space for all the moments, all the experience in life, so that once I allow that space for those moments, those experiences to surface into my consciousness. And once I do this, once those experiences become very conscious, right? I have now created a place, to reference them with wisdom. And if you think about it, wisdom is sort of a multiplier of our values. We reference life through the wisdom of having those events become aware as part of my self-awareness, as part of my own consciousness. If we think about it a little bit further, right, our society consists of a number of different individuals, different people, different tendencies. We're talking about 8 billion of different people, different likings, different ideals, different goals. And each one of them have a very different, very unique, very diverse psychological structure. Ah, now we're talking here. Now we're cooking. We can really conclude that large discussion here. We can conclude that for a healthy, vibrant social life, right, to happen, we have to be able to accept those apparent divergences that exist. Our differences, our individualities, our tendencies come to play in what, in my mind's eye, is this rich tapestry that is just a picture of what life is. We are here, we are different, but we what we do, what we say, what we think help contribute to this tapestry. And as such, we collaborate toward this collective tapestry and as well as a collective progress. And it's truly awesome in my mind to realize their own identity is unique and special because it's a result of everything that I am part of, right? And everything includes my inner well being and my really preventing to fall for a delicious, and I say this in jest here, but what is a delicious default, which is our psychological avoidance coping mechanism. And of course, we may not be ready yet to embrace acceptance. And for those of us who are not ready, we will. Time and time again, we will try to run away from our own realities. We will become neurotic. We will suffer greatly. We will end up transferring our fears into our form of consciousness in the form of anxiety that I talked about it, right? In the form of threats. And we even have our mental world populated by, oh, what I can only call ghosts, right? Ideas, nightmares that we cannot just put away. So it is up to you, it is up to me, it's up to all of us to decide to take on this journey of self improvement, this journey of self acceptance, right? It is up to us to really overcome our limitations through embarking in a world of let me learn, let me educate myself, let me achieve things, our goals, etc., etc. But we if we do this accepting our own identity without the simulation, we are golden. Life will be manifested within our own identity. Ha! How about that? I have here just my smile, my gratitude, my thank you as we wrap up our conversation. And I invite all of you to join me next. We will be talking about the dichotomy of having, right? This is, after all, a materialistic consumer capitalistic society that most of us live in the West. So having versus being, and how hard it is for us to define what it is to be. Macbeth aside, Shakespeare aside, let us talk about it from Joanna de Angelis' lens next time. But thank you so very much for being here with me. And until then, bye bye.